The remote. For years my evenings followed a rhythm so ordinary that I barely noticed it. Dinner dishes rinsed and stacked, a cup of tea cooling beside my chair. The television humming quietly while one of my shows played. Nothing impressive, nothing educational, just a familiar cast of characters making predictable mistakes in predictable living rooms. I liked that predictability. It filled the house with voices. That night the house felt normal until the front door opened. My son-in-law walked in first, still in his office clothes, sleeves rolled halfway up his forearms like he had never quite left the meeting he'd come from. My daughter followed behind him, tired but quiet, carrying her bag against her side. He stopped in the living room doorway. On the screen, the laugh track erupted after one of the characters delivered a stupid punchline. I had seen the episode before. I still smiled. He stared at the television for a moment, as if it were a mess someone had forgotten to clean up. Then he walked over and picked up the remote. The screen went black. "Enough of this trash," he said casually. "In this house, we watch smart things." He didn't look at me when he said it. He was already scrolling through the menu. For a second, I thought my daughter might say something. She stood near the dining table, watching him. Then she nodded slightly, almost automatically, like the statement had been perfectly reasonable. That small nod settled something in the room. I felt it more than heard it. I sat there a moment longer, the blank television reflecting the three of us faintly in its dark surface. Then I stood up quietly, picked up my tea, and went upstairs. No one stopped me. In my bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed with the cup warming my hands. The house had changed slowly over the last year. Not dramatically, not in the way people imagine conflict. There had been no shouting matches, no slammed doors. Just adjustments. At first it was suggestions. The television was too loud. The cooking oil I used wasn't healthy enough. The books on my nightstand weren't very challenging. Each comment delivered politely, even thoughtfully. Then, over time, suggestions became habits. Habits became expectations. I noticed I had started lowering the volume before anyone asked. I started choosing different recipes. I started watching my shows later in the evening when they were still at work. Sitting there that night, I realized something that made my stomach tighten a little. Somewhere along the way, I had started behaving like a guest in my own house. 2. The next morning I woke up early. My daughter and her husband left for work around 8. The usual sounds followed them out the door: coffee cups, keys, hurried footsteps in the hallway. By 9, the house was quiet again. I made another cup of tea and opened a drawer in the desk downstairs. Inside was a folder I hadn't looked at in years. Property papers, mortgage statements, the deed. My husband and I had bought the house 32 years earlier. After he died, everything transferred to me. I had kept the paperwork mostly out of habit. I spread the pages across the desk. There was something oddly calming about seeing my name printed clearly in the legal lines. I made 2 phone calls that morning. The first was to the attorney who had helped with my husband's estate. The second was to a locksmith his office recommended. Both conversations were short, professional, unemotional. By mid-afternoon, the locksmith was standing in my front hallway with a small case of tools. He worked quickly, explaining things as he went in the neutral tone of someone who had done the job 1,000 times before. The old locks came out. New ones went in. When he finished, he handed me 2 keys and wished me a good afternoon. Around 6 in the evening, the front door shook with the first knock. Then another. Then a third, harder. I was sitting in the living room with the television on again. The same show was playing. I had missed part of the season, but the rhythm of it came back easily. The knocking turned into pounding. Through the window beside the door I could see my son-in-law on the porch, confusion already turning into anger. My daughter stood beside him, trying the handle again and again. When it didn't move, the shouting started. "What is going on?" he yelled. "Open the door," the sound carried down the street. I muted the television and stood up slowly. By the time I reached the door, both of them were talking at once. I didn't open it immediately. The glass panel between us was enough. My son-in-law leaned forward when he saw me. "What are you doing? The key doesn't work." "I know," I said. My voice sounded calmer than I expected. Behind him, my daughter's face had changed from irritation to something closer to worry. "Mom," she said quietly. I rested my hand against the doorframe. "The house is mine," I said. For a moment neither of them spoke. Then the questions began, sharp, overlapping, louder than before, but the volume had already attracted attention. A patrol car rolled slowly down the street and stopped near the curb. One of the neighbors must have called. The officers spoke to my daughter and her husband first on the porch, asking a few steady questions. The tension in the air shifted immediately once uniforms were involved. After a minute, one of them knocked politely on the door. I opened it. The conversation took less than 2 minutes. Ownership was simple to confirm. When the officer stepped back outside again, his tone toward the couple had changed, still respectful, but firmer now. "This appears to be a civil matter," he said. "You'll need to resolve it through proper channels." My son-in-law stopped arguing after that. My daughter looked at me through the doorway like she was seeing the house for the first time. "We can talk tomorrow," I said. No one answered. I closed the door gently. Later that evening the house felt different. Not triumphant, just quiet. I sat down in my chair again and picked up the remote. The show resumed exactly where it had left off. This time, no one turned it off.